We're crossing you over now to the British Council, where JoyNews, in partnership with an amalgam of professional bodies, are holding a public lecture tonight on the Fourth Republic. The question on everyone's mind is, has the Fourth Republic delivered? Well, we hear from the experts and professional bodies who will be making their contributions tonight at the British Council. The event is underway in your shots there, and we can listen in.
We are not talking. We know about it. So a few of the professionals came together and said, no, let's see whether we can get more professionals to be talking. That's how the whole thing started. But some of us know that the professionals have been talking in the past, from the Champions' time. We know how union government didn't succeed through to Rawlings, PNDC, till 93. And even, we remember Kuntum Piant. Dr. Busakara is here. I think he knows a lot. Our senior is also here. In the 90s, we tried to get professionals to be talking, to be contributing to national debate. And I believe that professionals have a responsibility to look after the nation. We have mostly enjoyed the largesse of the country. We have to be able, position ourselves to contribute to national debate, governance, so that we can have the moral authority, or if I should put it, professionals' ethical authority to criticize where we need to criticize positively. So that's how it all began. Last year, 3 public lectures were held here. This year, we intend to organize a lecture every quarterly. So this is the first of the series. The next one will be in June. So that is what, brought some of us together. Wherever you find yourself, please come on board. We are absolutely apolitical, and we will not tolerate our platform being used for any political ends. We are apolitical. We are not funded by anybody. Students have been calling in, come and bus us to the place. We are not going to encourage that. We are not going to encourage. Institutions, please be watching this space. It is free lecture. Send your students. It can be a very good case study. The lecture is free. Your lecturers can have good case studies to lecture and conduct your exams. Your students have a right to be here. Institutions, we appeal to you, organize and bus your students to this place. We are not going to encourage that. I believe you agree with me. Please, audience, do you agree with me? Yes, we are not going to encourage that. Please, some practices must stop. My duty is to introduce the moderator, and then he will take over. He will also introduce, there are special guests among us. He will also introduce them. The moderator, who is also the chairman for the function, He's a broadcast journalist. He's the host of Ekosi saying, Ghana's biggest and most authoritative political and current affairs talk show on radio. He's also the programs manager of Asempa FM, a subsidiary of the multimedia group. He doesn't want to be introduced with plenty, if you like, words. So I'll stop here and then please ask you to join me with an applause. Let's welcome Mr. Philip Osebonsu. Welcome, Obi.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Oh, I can't hear you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Fantastic. So I'm happy to be called upon to moderate this amazing event. It promises to be very insightful from what we've heard, from the discussions we've had. I'm happy all of us are here, and I believe by the time we leave here, we would go fully loaded. But before I do any other thing, the Bible even says we should give honor to who honor is due. So let's specially acknowledge the presence of some. We are all very important, but there are some very important dignitaries in our midst. First on my list is Dr. Michael Abu-Sakara Foster. He's founder of the National Interest Movement. A round of applause for him, please. Thank you. We all remember him, right? Solid debater. Doc, we are proud to have you here. We have Mr. Andrew Quayson, a past president of the Ghana Institution of Engineers, also here. Thank you so much. Oya big man on Mumon same money, please. A round of applause. Thank you. And he's not alone, I believe. He came with his wife, Mrs. Monica Evans Quayson. Wow. Thank you for coming. Thank you. So all protocol duly observed, and in due course, I would be acknowledging the presence of the other people we have who have joined us here. But let me announce that we are live on JoyNews. JoyNews is on multi-TV and also on DSTV channel 421 and on GoTV channel 144. We're also live on social media, on Facebook, on YouTube, on X, formerly Twitter, and then on Instagram. So you can join us on all those platforms with JoyNews, and then you can watch us. So welcome to all our online viewers and listeners. We are grateful you made time to join us. Because of time, we would run quickly, and I crave your indulgence to bear with me. So I moderate this program at least maximum 2 hours. We'll be out of here. So we'll not waste much time. I would want to introduce our main speaker. And the main speaker has quite an interesting CV. He's a lawyer, a thought leader, a strategist, and the managing consultant of the Family Office Africa, a multidisciplinary consulting firm. He holds an LLB degree, an MBA from the University of Manchester in the UK. He is also a qualified, certified trust and estate practitioner with a postgraduate diploma in risk and compliance via the International Compliance Association. Our main speaker currently acts as advisor to numerous boards. He has been engaged in training over 1,000 leaders, including hundreds of CEOs across Africa. And that's something, that's quite huge. He's also a fellow of the Institute of Directors, Ghana, and a member of the Institute of Directors in England. Ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, let's welcome Mr. Theodore Albright. A round of applause for him.
Where do I sit? Just here?
Yes, come.
Wow. It's quite an interesting sight from here. Let me just share a little story. This afternoon, I was in this very hall addressing a different set of constituents. So it's quite nice, and I'm sure mine is a record, to be speaking twice on the same day in the same hall. Wow, quite exciting on a totally different issue. I'm really delighted to be here, and I'm going to stand on the protocols that have already been announced and observed. And I'd like to start off with this. The mind is a place of its own, and it can make a heaven out of hell or a hell out of heaven. Faith, leadership, governance, and good governance. In the Fourth Republic, have we delivered? This trinity of faith, leadership, and governance, the elements which act as a fulcrum upon which nations and communities survive and thrive, must at best be measured if we're to progress as a nation and as individuals. At best, nations and their collective mass are given light and structure and hope with which to succeed, and with that, to ascend into the heavens. Thus, a nation which seeks to prosper must of necessity ensure the right balance of faith, leadership, and governance. Harnessed as a force for good, these elements will propel nations to ascend Everest. But where mishandled, this admixture has the propensity to drive the collective into hell. What then must a nation do to ascend rather than descend? That is the Gordian knot, the sword of Damocles, whose mishandle must be avoided. Else, like Sisyphus, nations, communities, and persons will be condemned to a purgatory. Leadership, the ability to inspire, influence, and inform self and others to think better, do better, be better for positive impact and positive outcomes, must be the solution which helps us to avoid the curse which confines us to rolling Sisyphus' rock uphill. Governance, which to my mind is doing things right and doing the right things, must undergird all that leaders do, all the while inspired by the values and principles that faith brings. The alchemy of the elements, when measured in proportion, should only produce gold. Dross, then, is an indicia, an indicator of an imbalance. Ladies and gentlemen, for millennia, man has sought the answers to two basic questions. Who am I, and why am I here? And the quest to answer these questions has led man on a path, one which I'll call the quest for meaning. Not having a categorical answer, man has asked whether he is here by chance or by choice, by design or by default. And in seeking to answer, he has resorted to a form of beliefs, religion if you like, which we all call faith. Faith, because man does not have an empirical answer which categorically addresses the quest for meaning. Forced to make a choice, most of us have opted for design rather than default. Thus begins the journey of discovery, requiring, as for every journey, a guide or a shepherd. For those who have chosen to hold those beliefs and all faith, there are shepherds, often self-appointed, but rarely chosen in a democratic sense. Each, of course, except, of course, by election to attend the places of worship and adherence to a particular creed. We, the followers, become a fellowship, or shall we say, followership. And by default, these shepherd leaders assume a role of influence and leadership. Leadership is important because everything rises and falls on leadership. However, leadership rises and falls on mindset. My first question for me and to you, my audience, is: do the shepherd faith leaders enable us to think better, to do better, to be better for positive impact and for positive outcomes? Please hold your thoughts. What then shall we seek of faith? Faith, religion, belief, call it what you will. It embodies a set of principles whose ultimate outcome is to offer succor, hope, and salvation. To open eyes, to bring clarity and confidence, to enable the follower to head out to the land of milk and honey, otherwise called the land of prosperity. Faith requires us to venerate an ultimate concern, God, if you like. Whatever faith may be, it should bring about a measure of prosperity in the physical, psychological, spiritual domain. Is that what we have? Hold your thought. I define faith as a set of belief systems based on values which are to support the morality, moral fiber, and prosperity of a people and a nation. My second question: has faith brought the hope and the salvation and the prosperity and the succor it professes to offer? All of us operate within a physical and geographical boundary, which we call our nation, Ghana being ours. And tomorrow, we'll be celebrating Independence Day. What is the purpose of independence if not to throw off the shackles of oppression? Is it just a means, or is it an end in itself? I believe independence should be seen as a linchpin to support the material well-being of the populace. Simply put, we should use democracy as a vehicle to rise up Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The higher up the hierarchy we ascend, the better the nationals should feel economically. Thus, the absence of ascent or progress should be a question for all of us. My third question: what is the end? What in the end is the desired outcome for democracy in the Fourth Republic? We must understand that good governance, while being an end in itself, must necessarily also be seen as a means to guide our journey to the promised land, a land of milk and honey, a land of hope and glory, a land of salvation, so that we can explore the outcomes that we desire and exploit what we expect. Governance is doing things right while doing the right things. That is, to put it simply. My fourth question, I'm asking myself: has good governance manifested as an outcome in the Fourth Republic as a consequence of the actions of the faith leaders? a question that I want to put to all of us. Really, what are the outcomes that we desire in our personal lives and as a collective? Have we attained those outcomes? If not, why not? If so, how so? Each one of us must answer on a personal and a communal level. So now let's explore our topic. We pose the topic because we are all seeking and asking for positive outcomes. Outcomes which provide meaning, prosperity, hope, and salvation from our daily misery. We as a fellowship, for those who profess a faith, are asking for inspiration, information, and influence which enable us to think better, to do better, to be better for positive outcomes. Add to that, doing the right things and doing things right. Nationhood and independence, like I said, is a means and a vehicle for mass prosperity and a mobilization vehicle to take us from the chains of oppression to a heaven, not a hell. Ultimately, basic needs and concerns of the nationals, as depicted by Maslow, should be met. Here I mean food, clothing, and shelter. Consequently, for those who call themselves leaders or shepherds of the flock, who seek to shine a light because that is what shepherds do on the path of righteousness, they should take us to a place full of green pastures, cool and still waters. Are the shepherds enabling us to think better? Well, the question to my mind is a big no. How is it that the shepherds get fatter and fatter while promising more pie in the sky, and the congregation get poorer and poorer? Are they, the faith leaders, seemingly unaware of the position of the majority of the flock? Not a whisper goes out to address what is a growing poverty amongst the flock when the average income has gone up globally. More than ever, the flock struggle to make ends meet, and yet the silence from the pulpit in respect of their present condition is deafening. Are they oblivious to the current plight of the congregation, or they simply do not care, or live in a completely different world, which is their own bubble? The very least we expect is that the flock will be equipped with tooling and skills to stand on their own feet, to be productive citizens in the nation. Instead, what we hear is a message of glory, glory, hallelujah, with a bit of pie in the sky theology. How is it that the shepherds are not creating opportunities for their flock? Rather, what I see is a theology which says, pay now, your reward will be in heaven later. I would have thought that the shepherds will be more willing to lay down their lives for the flock, like Jesus did. But rather, what we see is that while one man, Jesus, fed 5,000, these days it's not uncommon for 5,000 to feed one man. Whereas it is common for people to leave the place of worship with little or nothing in their pockets, with only the hope of deliverance and promises of prosperity. A message which some will say is defective when measured against the scriptures. Some may even blame the followership who will not and do not want to read the very scriptures which purportedly undergird their faith. Well, does the scriptures say, my people perish because they do not like wisdom? Oh, how I wish that the followership will simply pick up the book and read it and be liberated from their mental shackles. What is even more amazing is the lack of accountability. Indeed, the flock will more often defend the shepherd who is acting as a wolf than stand up and acknowledge that perhaps they're being fleeced. It is often pitiful to see how defensive the flock become, especially when you mention that perhaps the doctrine is not correct, perhaps the theology is misplaced, perhaps they are being misled. Most would rather starve or die than acknowledge that perhaps they're being taken for a ride. It's quite baffling, really baffling. But it is manifestly clear that when you step back to see the trajectory, it will not end well for the flock. Like they say, Piglet does not know what sausages mean. You might say, why am I being so harsh on the shepherds? It's quite simply because leadership is about influencing, inspiring, informing others and self to think better, to do better, to be better. And when you have a flock with diminishing standards of living, with no associated reward for their hard work other than in heaven, then I ask, what about on earth? Let it be in heaven as it is on earth. Further, how is it that the shepherds quite often consider the whole issue of faith as one of a business to enrich self, a business to profit and make money? It makes no sense when a shepherd says, God bless me, likewise God will bless you, while completely ignoring the basic tenets of the golden rule, which is to say, love your neighbor as yourself. What I see is not the shepherd loving his neighbor as himself, but the shepherd loving himself more than his neighbor. I wish that the flock would wake up and open their eyes and at least read the scriptures which gave them the faith. The great tragedy is that the mass of the flock will never spend a minute to study the doctrines of their faith they espouse, but will rather spend 30 days fasting to obtain blessing. Fasting is good, but of course the flock must upgrade its mindset, upgrade its knowledge. And it's not for trying. For what does the book say again? That the people of the kingdom are less wise than the people of the world. If only they would upgrade their minds, they will see that for the most part, they're being taken for a ride, a very expensive ride indeed. So if the leaders have not brought us the result and the respite we need, the insights to think and do better, knowing that everything rises and falls on leadership, and that leadership rises and falls on mindset, then what of faith? Has it brought us the solace and the prosperity we need to govern our lives? Here we see a mixed bag. For faith in of itself is to be applauded because it gives us guidance and counsel and succor and direction. But let us look at the outcomes, because we must measure what we expect to see. And if that expectation is not met, then there must be something wrong. For every action has an opposite and equal reaction, and every input has an equal and opposite output. So if the output is not what we want, then clearly we're doing something wrong. And we are not addressing the critical issues that give us the outcomes that we desire. Frankly, when I look across the globe, there are many, many nations and many different faiths. There are those that have faith and those that don't have faith. But when faith is upheld for positive outcomes, it is good. In our case, it is questionable whether the net outcomes have been obtained. Nevertheless, it can be said that It has given us a measure of stability. It's given us a measure of peace. And in that regard, perhaps, faith has provided a very small dividend. Very small, yes. Not as much as we want, yes. Other nations have reaped a massive dividend comparatively. A small dividend. So the question was faith leaders and good governance and the Fourth Republic. Has it delivered? And frankly, if you assume, as I did, that governance is doing things right and doing the right things and is supposed to be measured by outcomes, then I'll say that in our current dispensation, the Fourth Republic has not delivered at all. Remember that democracy is a means to an end for us to throw up the shackles of oppression. The jury is very much out as to whether we've been able to reap that faith leadership dividend or a good dividend at all. Surely, when we compare the outcomes to outcomes elsewhere, it is very clear that our outcomes are suboptimal and we are not obtaining what we want. Some will say that faith leadership have not led us to the path of righteousness, but rather are adhering to a self-interest agenda, one that has missed the mark when compared to the scriptures. But let me say this. I wouldn't want to end this talk on a sorry note. Why? Because I think we have the capacity for more and for better. The faith leaders have an opportunity to redeem themselves by holding on to the basic mantra, which is the golden rule. Love your neighbor as yourself. And with adherence, we should see an immediate redistribution of accumulated wealth and a drive to be each other's keeper. Were we all to adhere to the basic tenets, then very, very quickly, I tell you, very, very quickly, we will find a change in our mindset, a change in our prospects, one which will be beyond our wildest dreams, if only we are willing to change. The net positive will be a dividend we reap, and we shall see the prosperity which adherence provides. Until then, what we desire will be a pipe dream, and our faith leaders will continue, as always, to fill us with stories of a heaven they are very much reluctant to journey to themselves for now. Why? Because the earth is sweet and they are living the best times of their life. Why cut it short and go to heaven? Ladies and gentlemen, this is my opening speech. Thank you.
Wow. You can do it better for him, please. So you take your seat there.
Thank you.
Yes. Fantastic stuff. So that's Theodore Albright, quite straight to the point and very captivating. I think before we even continue, because we all love Ghana, and I believe you love Ghana like I do. So if you don't mind, please be on your feet, respectfully. Respectfully be on your feet. And with your hands on your chest, we recite the national pledge together. The national pledge. I promise on my honor to be faithful and loyal to Ghana, my motherland. I pledge myself to the service of Ghana with all my strength and with all my heart. I promise to hold in high esteem our heritage won for us through the blood and toil of our fathers. And I pledge myself in all things to uphold and defend the good name of Ghana. So help me God. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's fantastic. And I think we probably underrate the words in our national pledge. Very powerful. I mean, the part that says, I promise to hold in high esteem our heritage won for us through the blood and toil of our fathers. And I pledge myself in all things, not some things, in all things, to uphold and defend the good name of Ghana. So help me God. I think we should recite it every morning before we step out of the house. Very, very important. But I captured something from what Theodore just said, and the problem he identified can be summed up in these few words: that while religious leaders are playing increasingly active roles across much of the development agenda in our country, so you can see them prominently in health, in education, this trend has been less evident in the growing body of work on governance and especially on anti-corruption. There is great but as yet untapped potential for our leaders, especially faith leaders, to address issues more forthrightly, explore complex ethical dimensions, and work for better results. The growing attention that is being devoted to ensuring high standards of governance everywhere provides an opportunity for our faith leaders in Ghana and our institutions to go beyond their traditional focus on personal and community values and to play more active roles in forming alliances against corrupt behavior, as we've just done against LGBTQI. We can do same against corrupt behavior, be it at the community level, at the national level, and even at the global level. So I think it's a charge for all of us to keep. And to help me dissect the issues better, I would want to introduce our panelists for this evening to join our speaker upstage so we deal with the vexed matters. The first on my list, and in her very modest self, in fact, initially he wanted to be introduced as just a pharmacist. And I was like, pharmacist, they are saying, But she still insists that I introduce her as a public health pharmacist and fellow of the Ghana College of Pharmacists, Susan Eduamankwa. A round of applause. Please, you join us here. Yes. Oh, Momon Semni, my name's Nasi. So please sit close to me. Here. No, the other one. Yes. Great. The next panel member is a writer, an actor, a communications professional. He won the National Award for Writing in the 1970. Then a Form 1 student at Ghana National College in Cape Coast. He won what? The National Award for Writing in 1970 as a Form 1 student. He also won the GBC Radio Playwriting Contest in 1979. His play won gold medal for Ghana at the World Festival of Youth and Student Cultural Contest in 1989. I was just about 5 years at the time. He won the first Ghana Association of Writers Literary Award, Drama Section, received a crack mention for Comedy of the Year in the mid-90s. His feature film was officially exhibited at the New York International Independent Film Festival. His TV series, Standard Life, was acknowledged as the most watched TV program in 2014. He created a reenactment of Ghana's independence, which we celebrate tomorrow, the 28th February shooting incident, and the launch of the United Gold Coast Convention. He is a lay preacher of the Methodist Church Ghana and chairman of the Creative Arts Committee of the church. He runs a private production company called Summit Concept, and that company has put together a play which will be shown on the 15th and 16th of March. That's next week at the National Theatre, 5 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. So let's all make it a point to visit the National Theatre on those 2 days. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome John Abeku Sego. Wow. Great. The CV is solid. Very solid. So I'll not waste much time. We'll kickstart the conversation. And let me also announce that in due course, we would have a Q&A, so we give you the opportunity to join us as well with your questions. Our main speaker is seated. Our two panelists also seated. So first, and I believe you agree with me that I would have to pick their thoughts on what they heard. If they disagree, they can state it. If they agree, they can also state it. And then the other questions would come. So maybe I'll start with Susan. Susan, you heard Albright. What do you think?
I think Albright makes a good case for the failure of faith leaders, and where we find ourselves today. So, he talks about our reward being in heaven. And we see quite a bit of that where, yes, the shepherds really are taking, the sheep for granted, and are in some cases are growing faster than the sheep. And you can agree with that. But you also look at it that faith leaders in many aspects of our life, and as you mentioned, in health, in education, in relief services, in helping to nurture the peace that we enjoy. They have done quite a bit of that there. So there is the goods that faith leaders have done, and that also needs to be mentioned.
Yeah.
So we would, look at it where they need to be congratulated for the things that they have done.
Sure.
We congratulate them, and for where we believe that they've fallen short, it is all of us in our need to have the society that we want.
Yeah.
It is for us to also criticize and say, to whom much has been given, much is expected. And being in that place where their influence is great, we expect so much from them. And so when they fall short there, we will criticize them. And we will, and it may be harsh, but it is the truth.
Yeah.
And as faith leaders, they should be able to take the
Stomach
truth.
the criticism.
No, take the truth. Take the truth.
Yeah.
It is for our collective growth.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's
Sure.
important that we do that.
Very
and
well.
so I think that's what.
Very well. Let me pick Abeku's initial thought. So you heard Albright. What do you think? What are your takeouts?
Well, thank you very much. Let me first thank you.
Yeah.
Ghana is a secular country. And indeed, since the Fourth Republic, we have emphasized that this is a secular country. Before that, some of us used to say, Ghana is a Christian country. Ghana is a Christian country. But
We still even do say that.
it's in the Fourth Republic.
Sure.
There's been the emphasis that this is a secular country. Only a few days ago, Professor Gajepo
Sure.
reminded us that we cannot use faith precepts and principles to measure our development or even use it to influence what we do. And she's threatening to go to court. Somebody has
Already
preceded her.
gone. Sure.
But if we want to judge the faith bodies, their conduct and all that, with the 1992 Constitution, then I would say that, well, they have no role in the Constitution. The Constitution at no point gives any faith body the authority, mandate, or objectives. That's not. We say with that. So why would we, if we fail in our governance, why would we want to blame the faith bodies? Until recently, when almost everybody could get up one day and say he's been called by God to start a church, and and unfortunately, the politicians have also encouraged them.
Yeah.
Before then, when the faith bodies or the Christian bodies. Let me state that I've never read the Quran. So I don't know what is in the Quran about governance and all that. I can only make reference to the Holy Bible. Until then, the faith bodies had authority. The Christian Council was a very powerful voice in this country. The Catholic Secretariat was a very powerful voice. The Pentecostals, those are Church of Pentecost, the Apostolic Church, they were very powerful. I remember that when A.P. Crenton released his Moses song, and it was played once on GBC, Christian Council called GBC to stop that song. And they didn't play it again.
Oh, wow.
When Lumba made his Abin Waha, it was played on GBC, Christian Council protested, and it was stopped.
You don't see that happening today, huh?
Today is not possible. It's not possible. So why would we want to blame the faith bodies for our failures? I am a Methodist.
Yes.
During the COVID times, I was part of the Methodist committee that sent food, relief items to people. And in fact, the Methodist Church provided more succor to the Ghanaians than the government. We gave more food to Ghanaians than the government of Ghana did. And I believe that the other Christian bodies, the Church of Pentecost, the Catholic, they all came in and supported Ghanaians. And so we cannot, to a large extent, blame the faith bodies for the failure of our system. I agree with the speaker that in terms of the Fourth Republic, whether it has delivered or not, I mean, I think that we've fallen short, far short of our expectations, considering where we came from. I mean, the military era and what we went through. So when we were entering the Fourth Republic, everybody was hopeful that things were going to be better. We were going to move away from all those. The failure largely is because of the performance of our politicians. Our politicians have
blame it
failed
squarely on them.
They have failed us miserably, right from '93 to today. We've been failed miserably by our politicians, all of them, Rawlings to Akufo-Addo. I won't take anyone out. You know, we expected that with the rest. I have always said that Ghana's population is only 32 million. Far less than the population of Tokyo. Tokyo's population is 42 million. We are about 32 million, 10 million. And yet you don't walk through the streets of Tokyo in the night and see people sleeping in the streets. You know, with all the resources, human, material, natural, and all that, we shouldn't be where we are. Ghana should have gone far, far, far ahead of our times. Yes, the faith organizations too may be largely responsible for some of them, or partly responsible for some of the things. I think that the insurgence of prosperity messages could also be blamed for the corruption in our system. Country. Young people who have just left the university, or some even WASI, SSC graduates, are promised heaven if only they will give. I mean, if give your last. Yes, and the next day, prosperity comes to you. You know, so in that, the misdirection of our youth, the faith bodies have also played a role. And we ought, I don't know how we can check that. You know,
but it has to be checked.
Yes, it has to be checked. But the Constitution is also saying that there's freedom of worship. Yes, there's freedom of worship. So, and that is why even the Christian Council is finding it difficult to check those who are going astray. You know, because today if you check somebody, says, I'm out of your council. I'm out of your grouping. We are starting our own. So today you have a myriad of Christian bodies.
I love the angle you brought. I just want to put the brakes on you. I'll come back to you.
Right.
But Susan, you heard the point about the Constitution not giving any specific role to our faith leaders. I ask this question always, that maybe we should begin from what, as a people, our expectations of them are. What do you think are expectations of our faith leaders? Because I think when we get that correct, then we can build on that.
Okay, so yes, we are a secular country, but let me say something.
Very well.
In 2019, in the case of Bonfair versus the Attorney General,
Yes.
in particular reference to the state's involvement
In
the
religious
Hajj,
activities.
yes, and things, the speaking through Sophia Adira, I mean, I think the Supreme Court was unanimous that the Constitution of the Fourth Republic, while secular in nature, affirms and maintains the historical, cultural, and religious or atheist character of the Ghanaian society.
Yeah.
So, obviously, secularism in the context of the Ghanaian constitution must be understood that it allows and even encourages the state's recognition and accommodation of religious and identity. So, yes, we are, secular, all right, but the state recognizes that. That
the role
of religion and other cultural and practices. So it's not as if it's there's no space for religious practices and
faith leaders.
And faith leaders. They definitely have a role to play. But in that light, we say that just taken from where Abeku, we talk about the state having a certain power and having the power of the sword. If I was to quote a certain gentleman, Jonathan Lehman, having the power of the sword. And this is a sword to protect us, a sword to ensure that we are safe, a sword that ensures that there's food, shelter, and housing. And the shepherds having the power of the keys, which was given to Peter to bind what he says is bound on earth is bound, what he says is loose and that. And those keys are to ensure that we, who are made in the image of God, heaven is here on earth, that we're put here for a purpose. So we have two different powers of authority. But the church or the faith leaders, in their power for the keys, it is also to protect. And they must ensure that the state, who has the power of the sword, does protect the people. The state must, they are there as shepherds, must ensure that the state, does right by the people, ensures that the image of God the people that we are, that image is not wretched. That image is how God is. You get it? So the church must do that. We do see them. I mean, in the past, you had the Standard. They spoke out. They still speak out. Maybe it's a little muted now because there's so much noise going on.
System.
And some of our faith leaders are not so noisy. But I was just looking at the communique from the bishops' conference in 2019, and they spoke about the free HSS.
Yes.
They said it was a good thing, but the government needs to look at it. It needs to look at it. My view of the failure of the church is that they should have taken their schools back. They really should have taken their schools back.
All the mission schools?
All the mission schools should have reverted. Because some of the moral decadence that we see here is because those mission schools have become too secular. And it is because the owners of the schools have relinquished a lot to the state. So a lot of things go on in the school that the schools don't because the government is putting money in. Those owners, even though the missions, they can't push. You understand? I mean,
but are you saying this even though we know that for most of these mission schools, you would find that the head teacher is maybe a member of the church that owns the school. So for my school, St. John's School in Secondary, for example, you find Catholic priests heading the school at a point.
You would find Catholic priests heading the school. You find Catholic nuns heading the schools. But basically,
but it's not like the church
it is
itself
not like the church itself. It really is not like the church itself. And some of the traditions that would have allowed to go on. If you said you were going to Holy Child and you were going to get a holistic Catholic education that just wasn't about you getting a certificate, a WASI certificate, but a holistic thing. A lot of it has been dropped back. You understand? Because the missions have allowed the state to take the school. That is where I would criticize them. I said, no, take your schools back. You understand? If you want to have an education, a wholesome education, and you want to bring your child to Holy Child, or take your child to Christ the King, or take your child something, even if you are Muslim, you must understand that you are making that choice to go there for a particular type of education. So you don't go there and say that, well, I mean, I don't want to go to school service, which is part of school activity, because I'm a Muslim, so I'm not going to go. That is wrong. You understand? And because we have lost control, I mean, a lot of the things, why were these schools built up in the first place? They were built up to instill a certain kind of moral character. I mean, I'm sure the Methodists, if you went to some of the Methodist schools, we went to Infantsipim. I mean, Infantsipim, I mean, you cannot say you are getting the best Methodist education if you went to Infantsipim right now. That's not true. You understand? So we will falter our faith leaders in that. But like I said, they still, I mean, looking at the communique, they talked about the gap between the rich and the poor widening, and it's being a recipe for disaster in this country. They talked about that. Of course, they talked about the LGBTQ. In fact, I heard them talking about it this morning and saying that, well, if the government doesn't, or the president doesn't assent to it, they know what they will tell their people. So that subtle threat has been issued. But what we expect is that their voices must rise above the noise. And because their voices are not rising above the noise of the prosperity gospel. Because, basically we hear a lot of the prosperity gospel and nothing else. And there are voices that are critical to our well-being, to our moral fiber, to the ethics that governs us. We are not hearing it. It's very muted. And all we hear is the prosperity gospel. That is what we think is going on.
But let me ask Albright this. Albright, do you think in and of itself the prosperity gospel is a bad idea? Because at the end of the day, if the individuals in the country prosper, the country prospers.
If by prosperity gospel you mean come and give me 10, 20, 30% and God will bless you, then that is heresy. I repeat it. That is heresy. And it is harkering back to the days of selling indulgences. And that is what led Martin Luther to start the Reformation. That is heresy.
So it should stop.
Yes, immediately.
Even when it has a foundation in the Bible, they would argue.
That foundation is illusory and doesn't exist. And those who rely on Malachi chapter 3 or Genesis chapter 12 or Genesis chapter 15 have not read their Bibles.
Wow.
So they are either being mischievous, don't know their Bibles, or it is convenient. But under this dispensation, if you call yourself a Christian, it doesn't exist and doesn't apply. And if anything at all, if you read the scripture, for those who do tithe, they're under a curse.
Babeku, the other thing will be, so because we're a lay preacher as well, what would you think has led to this whole perception that it seems our faith leaders are muted? They are too quiet. I mean, this conversation came up and I was like, okay, because maybe they want to stay off this very divisive partisan politics we practice in our country. So then, Charlie, my job is to preach to my flock. I'll concentrate on doing that. Is that what is happening?
Well, first of all, let's also look at the responsibility of faith leaders.
Good.
To society, to the country. Theirs is to pray.
Just pray.
Basically, the role of leaders is to pray. That's what 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 1 says. That the church is to pray for kings. It's not just to pray, specifically to pray for kings, to pray for the leaders, and hope that through the prayers, the leaders would do justice to their people.
Lord, when did we see you and not give you water? When did, come on, please. Totally disagree.
Okay, so I'll come to you so you state your disagreement.
That is the position of the Bible.
No, that is the position of the Bible.
Yes. That is the position of the Bible. And then, but if you look at the prophets,
sure,
nearly all the prophets, they contested with the leaders, the secular leaders.
In those days?
Yes. I mean, King David and Nathan, when David took another man's wife.
Sure.
Nathan went to him.
Sure.
And
rebuked him.
Yes, rebuked him. I mean, almost all the kings, Saul, Samuel, rebuked him. So it's not as if praying for them means that you just pray and leave them.
Okay.
You pray, and also because you believe that when you have prayed for them, you bring in God into their affairs, then you must ensure that they do according to the affairs of God. I mean, they do to please God. And God's pleasure is to find peace amongst the people, to have peace for the people. So, faith leaders have that responsibility to ensure that, yes, things go all right in society. But as you asked me, we now in times where it's like everybody is patronizing the other. So very shortly, we'll see the politicians running to all manner of people calling themselves prophets. To the extent that some people can even call themselves the prophets of the state, and give the president a horn. I don't know whether there was oil in it or not, But so we've messed up and mixed up everything, such that even where people identify their roles, they look out for their response, their reaction.
Yes.
From others. We have young people insulting priests when priests have gone, when sometimes they have been bold enough to speak against certain actions of the politicians.
Yes.
You see all manner of young people, so-called, what do you call them?
Maybe
who
special
call
chief.
serial callers. Calling to insult people who are older than their fathers. We have babies with sharp teeth insulting people that they later admit were their lecturers and help them to pass their exams. So we've moved into an area or era that we have virtually let down the morals and righteousness, which are what the faith leaders will have to do. So now the question is, how do we get the faith leaders, confronting the politicians?
They should speak to them.
To speak to them. Because now, like you said, now many of them are also afraid that maybe something that you did about 20, 30 years ago that you've even forgotten of. If you dare any politician, before you know, the next minute, it's on air. It's on air, it's on the social media. So people want to respect themselves and guard the little honor that they have left.
So they
unless
rather choose to keep quiet.
they will choose to keep quiet. But it means that the entire society must also step in. We cannot leave it to the faith leaders alone. What would, for instance, if you attacked a Methodist priest for coming out against a government action,
Yes.
and somebody came insulting, what would the other Methodists do? Would they come in to support their leader?
Their priest.
Just as the serial callers are supporting their leader.
Yeah.
But I think that we ought to come to a point where when something is wrong, everybody must be able to say that this is wrong, irrespective of your partisan shape or your faith.
Wrong is
church.
wrong.
When the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson did his party during the COVID era, it didn't take only Labour to attack him.
Sure.
Even conservatives stood up and said, no,
This is wrong.
I mean, you've deceived all of us. I mean, the entire society knows where the morals are. The society's values and all that are common to all of us. Unfortunately, for now, too, we don't know what our values are as a nation.
And some have argued that these values may be the custodians of our value system. You'd put it at the doorsteps of, say, our traditional leaders and also our faith leaders. Because as agents of socialization, the church, the mosque, religion generally is very critical. And that's why people think the church or faith leaders have been derelict in that duty. And I'll bring Susan on that. But before that, you were shaking your head when he mentioned that our faith leaders' responsibility is to pray, because that's an injunction the Bible places on them for Christians. Why do you disagree with that? Because at the end of the day, our taxes are not paid to faith leaders. So what can they really do?
What is the word you're using? Faith and leadership. What is leadership? Influencing, informing, inspiring yourself and others to think better, do better, be better for positive impact and positive outcomes. If you like, take out the leadership and let's talk about faith. But once you add the leadership, then you are obliged to look at leadership from a wider lens than just the injunction to pray. That is number one. Faith, number two, is the repository of our value system. So to say that all you have to do is pray and ignore the outstanding values that govern and emanate from it is a non-starter. That is number two. Number three, you go back in history, the faith leaders were the conscience of the king. And that is where we got equity from. And today, since 1857, Adjudication Act, they said where equity, the streams of equity and the common law merge,
Equity prevails.
And equity should prevail. Please, 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 don't let us sit here and say that the only injunction required of a priest or a leader, a faith leader, is to pray. Come on.
So, okay.
I think I went beyond that.
Yes,
I
he
said
added
basically
other
they have
things.
to pray.
That he also
But
had to
then
speak truth to power.
To power. And I cited David and Nathan and all that.
I got that bit. But Susan, so on this point about value system, at the end of it, if we would see the development we want to see, it should be anchored on certain values. The Ghanaian values are known, but the moral decadence now.
What are the Ghanaian values?
Oh, you don't know?
No,
Ghanaian
tell
values?
me. No.
I mean, Ghanaian values.
No, tell me.
No, but at least, I mean, integrity is something we all agree on.
Really?
Oh, you don't think
Integrity
so?
in this country
No.
now
I'm not saying it is there, but at least it's something we all know that the Ghanaians should have integrity. The Ghanaians should have love
Then
for
we will
country.
be voting for the people we vote for if we are talking about integrity. So let's not go there. Okay, you said integrity. Mention the other ones. Let me see.
Okay, so my question really is, you believe we have no values. What do you think has caused that? Is it the dereliction of duty of our faith leaders?
We in some ways, Abiku said something about, if you're a Methodist priest and you brought yourself out and people insulted you,
Yeah.
and other Methodist priests will shrink back.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at it. The Christ that they followed, or the Christ that we are following, he was reviled and all sorts of things, and he persisted.
Yeah.
You understand? He knew he would be killed for the things that he was saying and doing. And he persisted. And you say that you want to be a priest or you want to be a pastor and you don't want to pick up your cross and say that because they've insulted somebody, I am going to sit back. Then you are not worth the cloth you are wearing. Really, you are not worth it. Then you're not priest. You should be able to say, look, this is my cross. I will speak the truth, come what may. You understand? And it is not necessarily about you, the priest. It's about being a mouthpiece, for the truth. You get
But if the
get it.
priest
Look,
decides to speak
in
the
the first
truth-
place, we can even begin to put at their doorstep.
Okay.
That we have babies with sharp teeth that can insult people. Because priests should be custodians of the good things in our cultural
Yeah.
practices.
Yeah.
Priests should be able to reach the family unit. You understand? I won't sit and insult somebody. Touch wood. Even if my parents were dead, I would say, hey, my parent will roll in his grave if he should hear me insulting an elder.
Person, yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
That upbringing, it doesn't matter whether your parents are there or not. You get it. And where do you get that kind of upbringing? That upbringing is brought about in the family. You get it? In the family. And where do families get their things? Either from tradition, from religion, etc. So faith leaders are supposed to influence families such that they will bring up their children in such a way that even when they become whatever it is, they will not sit on radio and insult people who are their betters or who are their elders. That upbringing should show. You understand?
Yeah.
And so if we even wanted to put it at the somebody's doorstep, we can extrapolate it and put it at faith leaders' doors. No, it's the whole society.
Yeah.
But we are saying that faith leaders have an important role to play. And that all the things, you cannot absolve them from some of the things that are happening. And that some of the results that we are seeing, or some of the outcomes that we are seeing in terms of young people doing as they please and not, it's because there's the breakdown in the family structure. There's a breakdown in our values as respect, showing respect for your elders. You understand? And faith leaders being custodians of culture, of good things. You understand? I have been derelict in this thing and not speaking out. Because they should be able to speak out. They should be able to pick up their cross and say that whoever it is, I will say my piece. If I have a belief that what I say, coming from the abundance of my heart, is right and good for the society, I will speak
no matter
it.
whose ox is God.
No matter whose ox is God.
But what should be the platform they use in saying? Is it the pulpit? Because some have argued that when you stand behind that pulpit, you speak to a wide variety of people in your church, people from different political persuasions. So if you say the faith leader should speak truth, whose truth? Whose truth? Is it the truth from the left, the truth from the right, or the truth in the middle? Whose truth should a faith leader be speaking?
Truth is Bakupeo.
Yeah. But in our systems...
Truth is one.
Truth is one,
No,
but in our
truth is
system,
one. Look,
the truth depends on where you are standing, who, and what you are watching.
Look, truth is one.
Okay.
But before you say your truth, you must look at different shades of it.
Opinions.
You must base your truth on certain facts. You must look behind the facts because facts don't always necessarily make up the truth.
Sure.
You understand?
Sure.
But that is why I can only speak in terms of maybe the Catholic. That is why, as a priest, a Catholic priest, you don't go to school for 3 months and come out. You go to school at the very least for 7 years. You understand?
Yes.
And it is supposed to help you in delving behind certain things and coming up with a truth. You are not supposed to stand on your pulpit and your homily is not well researched. You get it?
Yes.
So when you begin to speak the truth, it should be not left nor right, but the absolute truth in terms of what the word of God says and how you are there to protect his people. You understand? We say we are made in the image of God. Government is supposed to protect us. They are not protecting us. We are having problems with our food. We're having problems with our shelter. We're having problems moving from A to B. And that is not what God's people are saying. Standing and speaking is neither left nor right. It's just basic. It's there.
And you can use the pulpit to say that.
You can use the pulpit. You can use societies. There are many avenues. You understand? These days, you have a lot of people who are on WhatsApp. Yes, they preach on WhatsApp. You have lots of people. Facebook, Twitter, etc., etc. They are everywhere. And they must use that. You understand? They must use that because to say the other side is using it. So why can't they use it? You get it. Why should they leave it to the other side? And if people come at them, they should hit back as hard.
Hey.
Oh, yes. No two ways about it. Because you should be fearless in the face of truth. You get it? If you say that I am more worried about my body, we say that you are the ones preaching to us to say that our bodies are temporal things and that we are only pilgrims here. You understand? And that our being here is only temporal. And that when the owner says, come,
you're gone.
There is nothing you can do. You understand? So while you are here, you must live for that time. And that it says that, like he says, when the least of my brothers, when he asked for water, I gave him. When he was in prison, I fed him. When he was this thing. So you are here for the least of your brothers. Because that's how you separate the goat from the sheep. That he says, you come into my bosom. Because for the least of my brothers, you gave them water when they were thirsty. You gave them food when they were hungry. You visited them in prison. You buried them when they were dead. And then you say that I will not speak truth to power because the people in power are not protecting the image of God by my people. No.
Very well. Thank you. So what we'll do now is to allow our audience to have a bite at the cherry. And it's because of time. So the microphone will be going round. And if you want to make an input, ask a question, please let me see by hand. So I direct the microphone to come to you. So maybe, Abu Sakar, do you want to make a comment, or it's okay for now? Very well. No, I thought you raised your hands. Okay, no problem. So we'll start with the gentleman here. Give it to him here, the one in blazer. And then everybody would get the opportunity. So straight to the point, 30 seconds, you make your point, and then we move.
Thank you very much.
Your name first.
Thank you very much. My name is Raymond.
Okay.
Yes. So, Raymond Donyo. Yes. Okay. I'm a legal practitioner. And this is very useful. Thank you for the organizers. This is very useful. I've never attended a discourse like this before. But I think this is very important for our nation. Yeah. So, this is my take on the issue. It's not a question. This is my take. I think that, I don't know at what point it's happened, but I think that along the line, I, growing up, has identified 3 key areas for our national life and its leaders. So we have our political leaders.
Yes.
We have our faith-based leaders. And then we do have our traditional leaders.
Sure.
These are our leaders.
Sure.
These are the pillars of our society.
Sure.
The custodians of anything good about our society.
Yes.
At some point, there was some marriage of convenience between these 3 groups in terms of how they run the society, in terms of, and in my view, I could be wrong, but in my view, not for a good reason, because it appears to the most of the populace that, you know, the kinds of ills or the kind of things that our political leaders engage in that we are not happy with, somehow the faith leaders are engaging too. And the traditional leaders are engaging too. Now, who checks the other?
Yeah.
All right? I think that the reason why the baby with sharp teeth was not by design. It was as a result of the system we have created.
Yeah.
Because they see these things that you do. They know that the things you say is not what you practice. Why should I respect you? Why should I listen to you? We allow our divisive politics to look at A and say it's B. We know that the funds and how it should be distributed, we will not do it. They see all these things. And the people who should call the political leaders to order are in bed.
Are also involved.
And calling themselves their prophets and going along with them and all that. The traditional leaders are worshiping alongside. So that is what our society has become to. So there's breakdown of authority. Nobody has authority in this country. There's difference between power and authority. Power you can have, political, faith-based, traditional. But authority
is gone.
Is that person that we respect. Is that person that we trust. Is that person that when he says A, we know it's A. That we don't have.
Very well.
That is the breakdown of our society. That is why we cannot keep Galamsey. That is why our school system would get worse and worse. And I'm not a preacher of doom here. We all know what is going to happen in the next 10 years in our country. That is why our economy will not get a fix.
I think you've made your point largely. Thank you.
It is hard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you raised your hand? Okay, quickly.
Yes.
Your name.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Abraham Lincoln Aimedu.
Yes.
And I'm an insurance person.
Okay.
So basically, I think as a country, as the legal counsel has already said, we have a problem with poverty, greed, tribe, and the last thing is
religion.
That is religion.
Okay.
You see, as he said, the preacher, gone are the days that they are able to speak truth to power. And each one of us here belongs to one religion or the other that we respect, so-called our papas or our pastors or whatever. So at the end of the day, if you do something and your pastor calls you, you attend to that and you make sure you change your course. Same likewise. And the church also want to take over the family setup. So if you even see a lady in town, maybe you want to marry, and your parents are against it, pastor will tell you, oh, forget your parents. And they want to take the position of familyship. Aside that, the pastor or the faith or the shepherd wants to politically correct. So, okay, there's MPP in power. Let me make sure I'm doing things that will favor MPP so that when I need my road to be fixed, I'll get my MP person come and fix it for me. So that is another thing. And the last, what I was saying about poverty, the pastor seeing himself like, hey, me, myself, I don't have much. How would I pay my children's school fees? How would I survive for the next term of life? So let me also my mouth's worth for myself and my family and my grandchildren. So at the end of the day, you also want to make sure he's amassing. So when they come to church, oh, bring 200, bring this. At the end of the day, they also pocket something. And then the last in the religion, because, you know, every country and everywhere in the world, even example, the Britain, at a point in time, they use religion to step down the individual interest, as the man is just said. So I don't know, they step down your interest of grabbing the state lands, state gold. So individuals are now in power. So they just mention, oh, I'm working with the Flagstaff House. They just come to your community. I'm from the office of the president. So they have given me concession of this place. So I have to mine. And because of hearing the name of the president, the person will be giving. So all this thing has countermand our system, such that at the end of the day, people feel that, okay, my pastor is also there. So let me also respect him. He's closer to God than even my parent. Forgetting that even whatever your parents said or say into your life can have effect on you. So these are the things that is troubling us. And the faith is constant. And we need to align because service to God is service to mankind.
Service to man.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
What I'll do is, we've done 2 here. Boss, I'll come back to you. We've done 2 here. Let me do 2 in the middle. We do 2 here. So Yes, the man close to you there. Yes.
Okay, thank you so
we
much.
Do two here, and then we come here and we do one more.
Thank you so much. I'm called Kofi Asante.
Okay.
And then I have been in the church for a very long time. I've been to Assemblies of God, Church of Pentecost, Royal House, and where I am now.
And you are now in which church?
Overcomers.
Overcomers. Okay.
Yes. Now, I fully agree with what Mr. Albright has said. In fact, he had been very radical with the truth. The only part I don't agree with him is with the tithing issue and spending money at church.
As for that one, we can talk about it later. But I have empirical evidence for that.
But he has spoken the truth. He said that, everything is about leadership.
Yeah.
And the pastors are supposed to be our leaders. So if Jesus Christ fed 5,000, and now the 5,000 are now feeding the one person, then it is not right. And I strongly believe with him. He made a lot of points. I think I wrote certain things that I want to congratulate him on. He said that faith is about balance of governance, ideas, leadership, and everything. If I don't get it right, I just paraphrase them. He also said that everything rises and falls on leadership.
On leadership.
So leadership also rise and fall on mindset. So I believe that just as Mr. Sego has behaved, forgive me, he has been like the normal conservative Christians that we know, enyeshri. Let's do this, let's do that. You talk and they hit back at you, so you reserve your comments. And I think that I will go with Mr. Albright on this one. Because about mindset, if our pastors always make us think that our reward is in heaven, then we'll also be looking at heaven instead of working hard on earth. He said it's not against fasting, but for you to fast for 30 days, instead of doing the right thing, going to work or doing something else, it will affect us, and it is true. My only issue is that literacy in Ghana is so high.
It's high. Okay.
You see?
Okay.
And so my question on this one is that, do you think that the government should partner with the church so that if the government is trying to formulate any policy...
So faith leaders is not just church alone?
I mean faith leaders. Yeah,
so,
faith leaders.
Yes, all
if the government want to bring out any policy, should the government contact
our faith leaders?
Our faith leaders, so that they can propagate it from the pulpit first.
Okay.
For the members to understand it before the government brings it out, so that they can work with it.
Good point. So bring it to this gentleman here. Is there no lady in this row who has a question? Oh no, I'll come. At least I'll do 3 here. Because of the numbers here, I'll do 3 here. Yeah, you talk.
Yeah, my name is Sebastian Ampa. Thank you very much. I think I am really impressed by the submission made by our panelists.
Yeah.
I want to shift a little bit from the main speaker. What are we expecting from the faith leaders? Is there a benchmark? We may have an outcome from them, but what's the benchmark?
Our expectations of our faith leaders.
So do we? Can we measure their performance with the benchmark? But there's nothing like that. There's nothing like that. So what the church has been doing now, they have rather been helping the society by instilling certain good practices into our upbringing. Somebody will be working in an institution because of his upbringing from a church. He believes that corruption is bad.
Yeah.
Even some will not even certain allowances they will say they don't take because they believe that taking of that money is bad, and it's coming from the church. And the Bible says, "Do not steal." It's in the Bible, so they instill those qualities in the people. But there's no benchmark. How are we measuring the church? Like this is your performance indicator. So A, you've qualified. B, but there's nothing like that. Even the state, as a government, we in the area of education, in the area of health, in the area of sanitation, what are the benchmarks that we need to measure the performance of education, health, so that you see that in education we've achieved A, B, C, D. Madam was saying something about the mission schools haven't given out their schools to the state. what is the policy that every mission school built by the church should be managed by the church? So if there's a good policy or there's a law enacted by Parliament having to guide the operation and activities of the church, because what Madam was saying is not true, because a minister or a regional education director who doesn't believe in Catholic, but he's in charge of a Catholic church or a Methodist church, and when he comes, his instructions goes. But if there's a benchmark there, so when you are a regional director or minister, when you go, you know that this is the benchmark for the church.
Well.
So whatever instruction you are giving, you give in accordance with that benchmark to achieve it.
Thank you. Because of time, the microphone should go to this man, and then I'll come to this row. Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is John Kofi Avoga.
Okay.
I'm a practical theologian.
Oh.
I lecture at Ghana Christian University College.
Oh, okay.
And I'm doing my PhD, which maybe I should have done some 15, 20 years ago at ACI now. I agree with some of the things that the main speaker have said, but some of them are totally out.
Okay.
But I agree largely with Abeku and Madame Susan. The question is that who is that, what do you call it,
faith leader?
Faith leader. Who called him? Who is he accountable to? Who is he responsible to? Who is the shepherd he talked about? Is it everybody who stands in the pulpit who is a shepherd? Is everybody who stands in the pulpit wearing a cassock a faith leader? Not many of them. A lot of them come to the Bible school. When I was leaving the Bible school in 1989, a student came who was at about the age of my father, at that time 62 years old. After the first week of lectures, he said, matre apofi. After 3-4 days in class, just doing what we call Bible survey, he said, matre apofi. Na hwenya mi ase bebre wuko.
Oh.
So there are a lot of people in our pulpits who should not be in the pulpits. But because of money, because of this place, that's why they are in the pulpit. The year I was leaving the Bible school, the year I left, when I came back to thank my lecturers, they told me of someone who came who they disqualified at the interview. Because when they asked him, why do you want to be a pastor? He said, I've completed school for more than 10 years. I've sent application to every place to get a job. I can't get a job. But I see pastors riding in those days, Audi and what do you call it? Those cars that were on top of the range.
Yes.
And so I think that I must also come and then
become a pastor.
So there are a lot of charlatans in the pulpit. Not all of them are called what? Are called by God. What is the benchmark? The benchmark is in the Bible. Not anywhere else. It's in the Bible.
But how do you reckon we can deal with that? In Rwanda, churches were closed down.
Yes.
So do we do that here?
Well, it's not the best thing, because the moment you encourage that, you're encouraging dictatorship, you're encouraging government. But is the government itself Christian? It's a secular state.
Yes.
And so the church is supposed to regulate itself. When we read church history, we get to know this is not the first time this is happening. It has happened before.
Okay.
And again and again. God himself has a way of cleansing the church through revivals.
Okay.
Not revivals that are organized, though. Revivals happen.
Like
Revivals are not organized. Revivals happen.
Yeah.
As people pray and study the Bible, revival comes.
Very well.
In fact, the reason why I'm
Finally.
here, finally, the reason why I'm here is that when I heard a topic,
Yes.
it's in line with what I'm researching into.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I came.
Okay.
I'm researching into the Christian in political or public office and good governance, the role of the church from a theological, socio-cultural, and political perspective.
Wow, that's interesting. So you need to talk to Albright then. Let me come to this row and pick two. You want to talk? No, you talk. I mean, I need to hear from a lady, so come and talk. A lady, we've not had a lady speak, so please talk quickly, and then Dr. James Kwabena-Bonfe will talk, and you'll also talk. Yeah. But keep it brief, straight to the point. We are really running.
Hello.
Yes. You mention your name and start speaking, yeah. Okay.
Wow. Thank you so much. I feel so elated and I'm so enlightened to be a part of this congregation. Shepherd and the flock would always continue to conflict. Dear faith leader, we know that it is not part of justice to tell the truth at all times, but what we ask for is an approximate transparency. Well, who at all is the faith leader? That is still hanging. Whenever we go back to our comfort zones, let us think about it and reflect about how best we could also become faith leaders, and not just see criticisms as ways of impeding us to not be our very best, but we should take it as ways of becoming great at what we do and have a listening ear to those we serve. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Dr. Bonfe, briefly.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think that the issue we are discussing is at the heart of what disturbs us as a people. And I want to say 3 words: insincerity, duplicity, and mendacity. These are the 3 things dominating our lives. And contrary to a view that has been held for a very long time, leadership is not everything. In a democracy, leadership itself is a product. It's a product of citizenship action. It's a reflection of the thinking of the generality of the people. And within our churches, how do we emerge the leaders? Churches now vote. And if you are aware of the kind of campaigns, including juju at church, you marvel. We cannot continue to think that as a people, our leaders will be different, be it politically, as my brother was saying, be it traditionally, be it religiously, and be it in other social systems. Because at the end of the day, we have weakened and distorted the view of leadership. Leadership is simply burden bearing. That is why it's not anybody at all among royals that qualifies to be a leader. One must appreciate that it is selflessness, it is sacrificing, it is giving of your all. It is not about acquisition. And my last point is that, unfortunately, joblessness has made faith leadership now a position of bread and butter. So you have many people who have become pastors, not because they are called. I think somebody alluded to that. Because a little study I've done into some discipline that is required of a pastor. I'm asking, can I be a pastor? Because there are 3 texts I want to wrap up with. Number 1, Proverbs 14, verse 34. Righteousness exalts a nation. Sin is a reproach to a people. It is much a duty of church members, but a higher calling on faith leaders. Yes. Second one, Philippians 2, verse 5 to 10. Let this mind be in you, as was in Christ. Though he was God, did not consider it, robbery to become man, but came and died the death of shame on the cross. And then the last one is 1 Peter 2, verse 9. And I like the King James expression that you are a peculiar people. A peculiar people. Faith people are peculiar. When you walk about this, you say, oh, that's a faith man. As for this man, corruption won't mean from Kono. As for this man, he will come to office early. As for this woman, like that. Our faith leaders must be a higher example of that. Yeah. If we meet these standards, well, I'm sure the Fourth Republic, we've had our pluses, We've had our minuses. Perhaps our expectations are often over-exaggerated, but we can fix ourselves. Let's fix ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. So you give the microphone to the man in red, Lacoste, and then we wrap it up with...
Thank you very much.
Yes.
My name is Abdul Fattah Tahir Akinyele. I'm a Muslim, and I was very interested when my sister raised the issue of the case of my brother Bonfrey and the case of the National Cathedral, and the Hajj issue came up. It's one of the things that some of us have been fighting against, why the politicians will want to use religion to do some of these things that some of us see as very irresponsible. I don't understand why a state must give some room for politicians to treat the taxpayers' money like their pocket money. Fundamentally, we are having a problem. For us, from the Muslim point of view, we don't believe in the separation of state and the church. Because when you separate the church from the state, it's like you are saying that the church or the church leadership don't have a role when it comes to governance. It brought me back to the crisis or the controversy that erupted in the West. And there's this famous Catherine Harris who made this statement that it's a lie that they were told that this church and state separation is a lie that they were told. And the founders of American state nation never thought of that idea. That is why they have in God we trust on their money. So we have an issue of we not imbibing all the ethics, moral teachings in our faiths, in our governance system. So that is where I think that we should focus our mind on. Because since this Fourth Republic, we have not, all the leaders have been Christians. So we ask, what has been their faith foundation? Is it that they go to the church and profess Christianity, and when they come out, they throw all that away?
Thank you.
So that's the point I want to make. Thank you so much.
Doc Sakara Foster would talk in a minute, and then we wrap it up here. So give the microphone to the respected Dr. Abu Sakara Foster. Yes.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank all the presenters for your wonderful presentations. As I sat down, I wondered how we were defining what faith was. Is faith religion? Or is it different to religion? And are we talking about leadership in faith, or we're talking about leadership in general? So I would think that we need a second session where we define very clearly what we mean by faith. If you're talking about faith, is it a spiritual pursuit? Somebody said it's to pray. I don't think you meant just literally to pray. Because faith existed for a long time, for as long as man has existed. And it has manifested itself in many different ways. And it is primarily the route by which we seek that which is greater than ourselves. And as we have gone out throughout history, we have tried to distill it for the purpose of molding the kind of society that we want to live in. The governance of the society is one thing. You can have a bad government for a good society. You can have a good society and have bad governance and vice versa. So I think we need to separate those two. And for a long time, we were having theocracies, in which case, whatever we believed in faith, we put it in practice. And we decided we're going to separate those things for very good reason. And I think that we should bear in mind the history of faith. The other thing that I think we need to bear in mind is that faith is not a preserve of Christianity. So not all truths are in the Bible. Faith exists in all of humanity. And if those people who want to say prosperity, gospel, etc., China doesn't believe in God. So why are they more prosperous than us? Are you with me? because they have distilled in that society a belief system that binds them and gives them a common vision. And that common vision is to uplift them to a higher place than they are. And I think that we need to think about faith in a different context, and also think about religion in a different context. And those who are worried about prosperity gospel, don't worry. I lived in England for a long time. When you go to England these days, which was a Christian nation, you find 5 old ladies in the front seat.
Yeah.
The rest of the church is empty.
Yeah, empty. It's true. Thank you. So thank you so much. We would wrap up, and I sincerely apologize that a lot of you who wanted to speak were not given the opportunity to speak. Because of time, we have to be wrapping up. But as Doc has suggested, maybe we do a part 2 of this, and then we can explore the issues further. So, Albright, we do a minute each, wrapping up comments.
So, to my mind, I would say that faith and religion are synonymous. But faith and or religion is the basis of all value systems. And I'll even go as far as to say that even in atheistic communities like China, they have a belief system, and for them, that is their faith.
Yeah.
And that is the basis upon which their values are shaped and molded. I'll go further to say that if you present yourself as leading a people or having oversight of a people, then whether you're in a mosque, you're in a Hindu temple, or you're in a Buddhist temple, you are a leader whose values are transmuted via the common belief system that you hold, and that you are a faith leader. Furthermore, that you have a responsibility, whichever color or flavor faith that you have, to ensure, unless it is a death cult like Branch Davidian or Jim Jones, then you have a moral responsibility to shepherd your people, and I use shepherd generally across the board, to a better place. And if the outcomes that we get do not take us to heaven, but take us to a hell, then you are a misleader who have misled us. Thank you very much.
Abeku, a minute.
Well, I think that leadership, for effective leadership, whoever is the leader or the system must guard human behavior with sanctions or rewards. A faith leader in the system that we have now, in the Fourth Republic, can we have a faith leader punishing a member of the church for going against the rules, whether the church's rules or the national rules, that you noted as a thief and you come to church and they want to sanction you? It's not possible.
The Bible is very clear. You can do that.
You cannot do that in a Republican, the constitutional democracy.
That's
it's
a crime.
not possible. You know, and that is why faith leaders are also a little careful. You know, because they cannot sanction.
That is not true.
It is true.
No.
When I was a kid, when I was about 7 years, thereabout, I think once my mother asked me not to. We were going to play football. The inter-schools, and I was a very stylish midfielder. My mother asked me that afternoon. My mother was traveling, so she asked me not to go to play, but to come and help her tidying up and leave. But I didn't go home. I went to play the football. Then when she came back, she told me that she was going to report me to the minister. That is the church, our priest. Our house was opposite the Methodist church.
I love your story, but I have 2 minutes to wrap up.
For about 1 week, it was difficult for me to come out, just come out. I will stand there and watch to see if I will see the minister before leaving. And when school closes and I'm coming back, I'd have to time, watch out before I come. Eventually, she told me she hadn't even told him anything, you know. And let me round up this with, sometimes to our faith leaders. Some time ago, I tried to form what I call the Christians in Public Service. My basis was that if we say that 72% of this population is made up of Christians, then by some stipulation, most of the 72% of our problems are on the shoulders of Christians. So let us see how, if the Christians decide to do the right things, everybody will be
fine. Thank you.
I wrote to about 20 ministers asking them to be on the board. Not one responded.
Thank you. Susan, finally, a minute.
I mean, there is the separation of state and church.
Sure.
I mean, you don't have the states going into churches and teaching them, asking them to baptize people in a particular way or to do confessions in a particular way. And again, you don't have, the church criminalizing sin, or urging the state, to criminalize sin. So there is some separation. But God is not neutral. It doesn't matter whether he's a Christian God, a Muslim God, he's a traditional God. He's not neutral. He's found in all places. And so for him, and as it is said, he is love. He is love. And if we love our neighbor as ourselves, we will not see some of the things that we see in our society. Because you will put yourself in your neighbor's shoes. You understand? If a road is supposed to be constructed, and you know that if I take so much, this road that will be constructed will be poor quality, and my people will suffer for it, I will not do it. You understand?
Yeah.
If I know that this is my work, and I have to come in early so that people can get a good service out of me, that love will prevail. What we must do is to let love reign in this country. Because love is not corrupt.
Empathy. Love.
Empathy. Love for each other. It doesn't matter which religion that it is. You understand? So for me, that is the value that we must have as a people.
Very well.
That we put ourselves in each other's shoes. Because sometimes I think that we are designed to hurt each other. You will find, somebody, a tractor driver will stop in the middle of the road to pick up passengers, and everybody else is standing, behind them. If he had a love for his neighbor, he would not do that. You understand? This design to twat each other and make each other miserable must stop. So for me, I think that is the basic thing. It doesn't matter which faith you believe in, if the value is that you want to put yourself in your brother's shoes, in your sister's shoes, this country will be better off.
Right. So thank you so much. And I would want to thank Albright, our main speaker. I'll thank Abeku. I'll thank Susan. Fantastic conversations. And I believe we can do a part 2 of this. And I want to thank you for also joining us here. It's been great for all of us here at JoyNews and the amalgam of professional bodies. We say thank you and good evening. Maybe in the next quarter, we'll be back here with another interesting topic. Good evening.